everybody, welcome back to Rain and Pours. I'm Mitch and today I'm super proud to be a part of another This Little Piggy pigment collaboration. This time we've been tasked with creating an artwork that represents our hometown and incorporating two of the pigments that we've been assigned as part of teams of 5 and show them off in our artworks. So the two colours that my team and I have been assigned are Zeus and Show Pony. So Zeus is an amazing deep gold colour that I've been nagging Shelley for ages and ages and ages, and I'm so proud that she's actually made it. And she hit the nail on the head with this colour, like it's absolutely fantastic, and I'll show you in the pour. And the other colour is Show Pony, named for Jeremy Massey of the Massey Boys, because he is a show pony, and it is a really vibrant, bright neon pink colour with lots of sparkle. So I'm going to show you the piece of art that has inspired my artwork, which is up here. This is by Zilla Creative, and it is a beautiful skull artwork that's on the back of a tattoo parlor here, and it has the gorgeous deep gold that is Zeus in the skull, and on the background it's got the bright pink of Show Pony. So I thought this was the perfect piece to use for my inspiration, and I'm going to try and create an artwork that represents this artwork, the graffiti, and show you what my hometown means to me. So I'm going to take you down onto the canvas, let's get started, and I'll explain what I'm going to do. Okay, so here I have a 16 by 20 inch canvas, and I'm going to use this to create my hometown artwork on. I have quite a selection of colours that I'm going to be using, and I'll run through them as I pour each layer, because I'm going to do a layered artwork. So I'll show up the inspiration image again. As you can see from this image, there are a few different layers of colour within the image. So for my background, I'm going to be doing a sheleeart bloom swipe with the hot pink colours, and I'm going to do that as a spiral swipe radiating out from the centre. And for that, I'm going to use Show Pony and Golden Peach by This Little Piggy, and a fluoro pink cell activator, which is Liquitex Fluoro Opera Pink. For the darker gold sections of the painting, I'm going to be using Zeus, Cappuccino, and Quin Nickel Azo Gold together. They're going to give a really nice dark shadowy feel to the image. For the highlights, I'm going to be using Zeus and Ore from This Little Piggy, as well as Matisse Metallic Gold Cell Activator. So the goal here is I don't actually want to see the cell activator itself, but I do want to see the gold cells that it creates. So you'll see the effect that I'm talking about when we do that. And for the deep shadows in the eye sockets, the mouth, all that sort of stuff, I'm going to be using This Little Piggy Galaxy and Sapphire with Amsterdam Lamp Black Cell Activator. So the background layer is going to be directly onto the canvas, and the other layers I'm going to pour as paint skins, and I'm going to be cutting those out on my Silhouette Cameo Plus cutting machine. So I've done this before, and I've got a collaboration coming up with a couple of other artists where we're creating a dragonfly artwork, and that's the technique that I've used for that. So tune in for that one as well. And I'm going to do the same thing for this and hope it turns out. So without taking too long, let's start on our background piece. So for the background, this is quite a large canvas, and I'm going to use a white pillow base for this one. Now I'm going to grab my gloves as I usually do, and like I said, we're going to do a white background for this, and my hope is that I'm going to get a really nice splash of pink all the way across this, and it's going to completely cover all the way to the edges so that it's like that beautiful pink glow coming out the back of the skull. So because this is such a large piece that I'm working on, I've got my cardboard here which I'll prop up on the side to catch all the paint so I don't get covered in it. And the background paint that I'm using is British Paint's Low Sheen Interior in white. This is the wall paint, and this is as per the sheleeart bloom technique. If you want to learn that technique, you can take the course online at sheleeart.com.au. And if you want to buy any of the This Little Piggy pigments that I'm using today, you can find them at fluid-art.co. Okay, so I've got some pillow down on this piece, and I want to pretty much cover the base of my painting with paint, and I need to work quite quickly with this so that it doesn't dry. So it's probably best if I mix my colors so that I know that they're the right consistency. So let me go through them. So this is the brand new color Show Pony, and you can see there how bright and vivid pink that is. And I hope I've got enough of these mixed up. I have Golden Peach, which is exactly as it is described, a beautiful peach color with a lovely golden shift. And I've got my bright pink cell activator. So the way that I'm going to be doing these is by putting the colors down onto my canvas, swiping them out with my swipe tool first, and then swiping the cell activator over the top. So because my British Paints background dries very, very quickly, I have to work fast to get this covered, and I'm going to smush in the edges like Lisa Marvin does here. So that's going to make sure that my canvas is entirely covered with white paint, and it's also going to allow my paint to flow over the edge. So if you don't cover the entire work surface and you've got dry canvas, when your paint rolls over that area, it will get stuck and roll onto itself, which you don't necessarily want, although it can be helpful if you've got bits on the edge that you kind of don't want, you just want the central design to spread out. That can be a little bit of a helpful technique to sort of get that to disappear without losing too much paint. Okay, speaking of, I've got my scrape cup ready, and we're going to put down our colors into the center. So I'm going to go straight on with these, really load them on. And I'm going to bring it right out to the edges. Because we're only going to try and swipe it all the way to the edge anyway. And I don't want as much golden peach, but I think I'm going to have to. And sorry if my big head gets in the way during all of this. And now, the only way to spread this out is with our giant Fluid Co. paint spreader. So this one is the extra large. Don't know what size it is, but that is the biggest one that they sell. And we're just going to swipe this all the way out. And to do that, I'm going to pour my cell activator straight onto the palette knife, the swipe tool. Get as much on there as I can. I don't have that much left in this container, and I'm just using my stir stick to spread it around evenly on my palette knife. I want a nice even coat of CA so that when I spread it out, it's going to, one, form cells, and two, spread nice and evenly, and I'm not going to get clumpy cells. All right, here goes. All right, that looks great. Very happy with how that swiped out. I could have got a lot more of that color in the middle there, but the edge is what I am looking for. Okay, now I'm going to put my tools and everything important away behind my barriers here so that I don't get covered in paint, and I am going to give this baby a spin. I'm going to move it into the center because I realized it is not centered, and let's go with this. All right, so I've just sped this part up quite a fair bit. You don't need to see me spinning this out, you've seen this all before. So I'm just making sure that I'm getting enough paint off the canvas so that it doesn't dry and crack. So this here is our background with Show Pony and Golden Peach. You can see that gorgeous color shift, or not color shift, the golden aspect of Golden Peach. And look how brilliant and sparkly that is. It's so super difficult to capture the sparkle of This Little Piggy pigments on camera, and they do look amazing under resin, but super happy how this has turned out. So I'm going to put this aside to dry and come back and pour the skins. So I'm using the Fluorescent Co matte. I believe this is the 60 centimeter by 60 centimeter one, and you can find that on their website. And I'm going to pour directly onto this. So this is brilliant for making paint skins. They come clean off and they don't show any texture of the silicone mat underneath. So we're going to get straight into it again, and we're going to use another white pillow for this one. Now, something I learned from the last time making paint skins is I do not need much paint on there at all to make the skin, because they will spread quite a fair bit. And so I'm just pouring out my pillow paint, doing a bloom as usual with this wipe tool, and as you can see, I'm just layering this all out nicely using my hand to spread out the edges so that the edges don't dry up as I'm pouring. Our house paint here in Australia does dry quite quickly, and if you don't do that you'll get lumps on the edge, like a circle around the outside of where your pillow paint is. Layering up all my colours, gonna swipe this out and yeah, just spin everything off nice and thin so that all of my paint skins come out the same thickness, so when I cut them on the silhouette machine I don't have to adjust my settings. So I'm just layering up my swipe tool like before, flattening out the cell activator, and like I said, not putting too much cell activator on there so it breaks up nicely, especially because this is a metallic colour, and I'm actually going to do Shelly's trick and bang it out a little bit because this may not break apart as much as the others. And let's swipey swipe. And I'm not too fussed if there aren't cells over the entire piece. That's going to add lots of depth and dimension to it. So when you're working with cells, sometimes it's nice to have a little bit of variation of areas with cells and without, and you'll see in the finished piece how nice that actually looks so that everything isn't exactly the same. And the other thing with paint skins is you want to pour them as thin as possible. One, so that they dry nice and evenly, but two, so that when you come to cut them on your cutting machine, that the settings remain the same no matter what skin you're cutting. So I'm going to transfer this whole thing over to my drying table and gently slide the mat off, and hopefully try and keep everything nice and flat. Alright, going in with the next skin. This one is for the highlight areas of the painting. So this is any areas that have a lighter gold visible, and I'm using TLP Zeus and Ore for this one. And this doesn't turn out exactly how I had planned. I tried swiping straight across, but because I had left patches of white in between my squiggles, it didn't work out quite as I had hoped. So I do just pour the paint straight into the middle and swipe it out like I have been with my other skins. So that's Zeus there. You can see how deep and beautiful that gold is compared to the pale gold of Ore. And when I swiped this out, I didn't quite push down hard enough into Zeus, so I didn't get those cells of Zeus popping through the Ore, but perfectly fine. It actually worked out really, really well, and I'm quite happy with how this one did turn out, because the parts that it was meant to go on, it fit in really nicely and provides a really nice contrast with the final product. So again, just making sure that I'm cleaning up all the edges, cleaning up the paint as I go, and making sure that I spin this out enough so that my paint skin is nice and thin. What I'm going to do is slide the paint skin off this and onto the board, hopefully. Yeah, there we go. And that's going to help me transport it over there without messing it up. And I might just leave it on the board actually. Okay, now pouring on my rectangle. So my theory did work. I just had too much pillow paint on there to start with. And I'm just going to use my little spatula to spread this around. So just spreading out the black pillow paint there, and you can see that it's more of a charcoal colour. That's because it's made up of scrapings of pillow paints from other pours that I've done, and you'll be able to tell the contrast between that and the Amsterdam Lamp Black Cell Activator, and I think it actually turned out really well in contrast with the colours that I've used. My palette knife, and just getting that coated nicely and evenly, and let's swipe this baby out. I love the cells a black cell activator gives. They're just so perfect, and you see them instantly. Again, get my colours out the way. And this is going to go beautifully in the shadows because the blue and the gold work really well together. And I didn't want my shadows to just be pure black. So spinning this out, and by pouring the shape into a rectangle, it allows that shape to spread all the way to the corners in the same shape that you poured it. So if you have an odd shaped canvas, pour your pillow in that same shape and it should spread nice and evenly to cover that surface. So just checking where the weight of the paint is, and it is still there. So what I can do, because this is slightly smaller than my square mat, I can move this off center, and let's see if we can shift all of that paint weight to the other side of the silicone mat. And doing it that way is going to mean that your design isn't going to warp as much, but it will still travel and spread. By moving the silicone mat a little bit further down, I was able to shift all of the paint to one direction without warping my middle cells, which you'll see in the final product. And I'm going to call this one good. Now, I'm going to leave this one to dry on the spinner because I don't have to make any more skins. And we're going to come back when they're all dry and cut them out. So I'll let these dry for a couple of days, and then I'm going to let them cure for at least 2 weeks before I put them on my spinner, on my cutting machine, sorry. And that is so that the paint can cure enough that it's going to cut, and that I can remove it easily from my silicone mats. If you don't let your paint cure enough, it will stick to itself and it will be like cling wrap. You'll never get it off, apart from each other. So I'm going to let this sit, let these cure, and we'll be back to cut them out on the silhouette machine. Alright everybody, so it's a couple of days after the paints have cured for the skull pour, and I just wanted to show you how I get the paint off the silicone mat. So this is the one that I poured with Zeus and Cappuccino, so the darker colours, and I'm just going to clean up these drip edges because when I go to cut these out on the silhouette, these are just going to get in the way from previous experience. So just going to clean them up now and get rid of them because I don't have a use for them. Normally I would keep stuff like that because it's interesting and you could use it in various other pours, but I don't think I have a use for just plain white ones at the moment. I'm probably just going to bin those. And this is the finished pour. Look how shiny that is. That is so metallic and glossy. And that is TLP Zeus. That's all Zeus. There's an amazing part here in the middle where the quinacridone nickel azo gold has made like a deep red, almost red orange color over the center, and there's little bits over here as well. So they're definitely parts that I'm going to look to keep in my finished product. So the way that I take these off the mats, do not do it this way. If you do it this way, you're going to struggle peeling this off and you have a chance to stretch the paint skin. Flip your mat upside down and start at one corner and gently peel the mat back from the top. And this way you can keep your piece lying nice and flat. See how easily that came off? And then flip it over and it's good to go. So this one, again, I'm going to trim up my edges because I do not need those. It's just going to make it easier to handle when I take it inside. So no, shadow should be just above the highlights. There we go. Right, now everything is in the correct order. Okay, it took a little while to get there. So now that I've got my silhouette all ready to cut out, I'm going to hide them all. Oh, that's locking. I'm going to hide them all and I'm going to show you what I'm going to do. So what do I have loaded up first? On my mat, I currently have the shadows ready to go. So this is what we're going to work with. So all I'm going to do is simply move these pieces off to the side and I'm going to jigsaw them together. Now what we can do is we can rotate these pieces to fit better, and this is so that I'm going to waste as little of my paint skin as possible. What you'd never want to do is to flip horizontal or flip vertical, because that means that you're going to be changing the orientation of your pieces, and that could mean that everything gets thrown out of whack and you're going to have pieces that are actually backwards and not part of your design, which you do not want. So just rotating these, trying to fit them in as best I can to get my cutter to cut as many pieces of this as we can. So I spent about an hour on this trying to reposition all my pieces so that they will fit within the skin that I have set on my cutter, and some of them did go off the edge, so just make sure that they are well within the bounds of the paint skin and your cutter is set to cut accurately. Alright, so I've managed to squeeze in 5 variations of my skull. Now this is a do or die situation, because if this doesn't work, I don't have a second skin and I may have to pour a second one. Okay, so I'm here at my silhouette machine. You can see I've got my paint skin stuck down to the cutting mat, and now we're going to load this up. So with the silhouette machine, I can press this button and line everything up manually before it accepts it. So I'm just putting the mat into my machine. If you own one of these machines, I use the leatherette setting and change the speed to 10. I pretty much leave all of the other settings the same and do tweak them if I need to, if I've got a thicker paint skin. And always do a test peel before you take everything off the mat, just to make sure everything is cut through and you don't have to reposition anything later on. Okay, so here we are back in the studio. Everything is dried, everything is cut out and ready to assemble. So this is the background. Look how gorgeous that pink with golden peach looks. That's the show pony. And we've got Zeus with the Q-nag and cappuccino here. This is the base of our skull. So we're going to layer everything onto this artwork, and I've decided I like it this way. And we're going to adhere everything to our canvas using some Jo Sonja gloss varnish, because that's what I have on hand. So I'm going to grab a little cup and I'm going to pour some varnish into this. Now I did another piece similar to this where I used paint skins and I cut them out and stuck them down, and I found the varnish was the best way to go because it dries really quickly and it's not going to leave any marks on the canvas if we get it wrong. So yeah, let's go that way. And what I'm going to do first is I'm going to assemble everything on top of my skull so I can see how it looks. So we're going to start with the shadow piece, which goes down here. And I have to remember that we've left room for the borders, and I might actually put those borders onto my transfer tape first so I can layer those up as well, because the transfer tape is transparent. Okay, so this part is a pretty long montage of bits of me assembling everything onto the canvas. So you can see that really nice dark gold, the light gold, and the shadows there. Now what I'm doing with this part is I'm applying all of the details to my transfer tape, and I'm pushing down nice and firmly on that so everything sticks to it. And I will cut off any bits and pieces that I don't want once the transfer tape has been adhered. Make sure it all goes on nice and smooth so none of your bits get curved or curled up. When removing transfer tape, it's best to hold it almost perfectly flat against the vinyl, and that way everything will stick to the transfer tape and not to the vinyl backing. So here I'm just cutting out the bits and pieces that I made extras of, just in case I cut through them or they didn't print out right, and I'm just sticking them to the backing tape again, because we're going to apply this straight to our canvas, as you can see me doing here, and that way I can use those details on the extra bits and pieces that I cut out to make a second skull. Turns out I didn't need that bit there, so I've just cut that off, and making sure that there are no bits and pieces that don't line up, and sticking that down and using my tweezers to hold everything down. So folding the transfer tape back in the same manner as I did for the backing, that's going to make sure that everything adheres to your canvas or your paint and doesn't come up with the transfer tape. So I'm applying the borders that I cut here, and you can see that my skull now has teeth. I did have issues with my rose gold outlines. Something happened and they weren't coming off the vinyl backing, so I had to go away and cut those up. Also, they didn't align with the black outline underneath, which I don't understand how, because I created the black shape from the outline of the rose gold. And here I'm going in with Whitehaven and Brulee, and I'm just painting in all of the highlight areas on the skull, and these worked out so well in the final piece. It looks absolutely amazing. So painting that in, just using that image as a reference, and then I'm going to go over the top of this with a paint marker. Now I painted in Brulee here on the front of the nose and decided I really didn't like that. So to get rid of that, all I did was use a wet brush and some paper towel and wet the paint back down, went in with the paper towel and wiped it all off. It's the easiest way to get rid of that. And making sure that all my vinyl is free of any paint so that you can actually see the outlines. And just touching up little areas that I thought needed touching up. Now I'll say that I've mixed Whitehaven and Brulee with gel gloss medium. They're just off there on my silicone mat. And now I'm going in with my, I believe this is an Iron Lac black chisel nib paint marker. This was actually a paint marker that was a bit too big, but I didn't have a smaller black marker. And I did go over some areas where I'd painted in the black with white again, just to go over it, because I really didn't like how much detail I had added there. But the final result, everything looks pretty good, and I'm really happy with how it turned out. And now I'm going in with some gold just over the black to sort of dull it down, and I decided to outline the eyes, nose, and just the little bits of the cutout with the gold, and I think that added a really nice little bit of dimension as well to the painting. So we're nearly finished, guys. The last step is to apply resin, which is coming up, and the resin finish just really makes this pop. So I've got my resin on the canvas. I'm using Stone Coat countertop epoxy for this. I don't have a specific art coat resin, so I've just used my Stone Coat. I wasn't wearing my respirator, I should have been, and always wear respirator and gloves when you're working with resin, but I'm basically just smoothing it all over. I was very quick with this because I didn't want any hair or bubbles in there, and using my heat gun to get rid of all the bubbles, make sure that the resin is nice and liquid, and then going over with my heat torch to pop all of the bubbles. Okay everyone, so it's been a couple of long weeks working on this piece, and it is finally finished. So here is my skull artwork, representative of my hometown Penrith here in New South Wales, and it's already finished and ready to go. I'm so happy with how this turned out. The colours are absolutely phenomenal. Let's get this focused on this so you can actually see it. Look at all of that gorgeous colour in there under resin. So you really can't see the sparkle that is coming off this on camera. Now there were a couple of spots in the resin where bubbles did come out from under the vinyl. I'm not overly fussed about that. In the grand scheme of things, this looks absolutely magnificent, and if you're looking at it from any more than arm's length, you're never going to see them. So I'm so happy with this. Let me see if I can focus in a little bit closer so you can see some of that amazing shimmer in there. Look how deep that sapphire is. Zeus up in the top, Show Pony and Golden Peach in that background. So if you've liked what I've done, don't forget to like and subscribe. Check out all of the other artists in this collaboration, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye guys.